Hey friends, I'm going to try to have more energy in this video just to get through it quick, but the Destiny 2 team account on Twitter recently made a post titled Hunter Ability Tuning Preview, and it's talking about a nerf, finally, to Swarm, Smoke, and Clone. So in this video, I'm going to read it verbatim, then I'm going to have my thoughts on it, then I'm going to speculate where the meta is going with Hunters. So let's start. Threaded Spectre Aspect. Increase cooldown of Marksman Dodge and Gambler's Dodge when Threaded Spectre is equipped. Remove the dodge cooldown penalty after creating clone. If the clone is destroyed by attacks, it no longer spawns threadlings. Increase the amount of time the clone will distract nearby combatants before exploding. Next up, Swarm Grenade. Increase Swarm Grenade base cooldown duration by 15%. Move Swarm Grenade to a slower recharge tier for non-passive grenade energy gains. Next up, Smoke. Reduce the time the smoke bomb projectile lingers in the world from 10 seconds to 3.5 seconds. Reduce the player movement speed penalty imparted by the smoke by 25%. Additionally, we have a few more changes planned for Episode 2. While we wanted to make the following to ship alongside the above changes, they needed a bit more time in the oven. Next up, Clone. Increase detonation damage versus combatants by 33%. Next up, Swarm. Swarm Grenade submunitions will be easier to shoot. Swarm Grenade submunitions will chain detonate nearby submunitions. Okay, now my thoughts on these changes. This is coming from a point of I have played this game for a decade, I've had experience with how the meta progresses, and I'm going to say that overall, you're still going to think the meta in PvP will be garbage to play because it's going to shift from Smoke, Swarm, Clone to probably Prismatic Titan flying in with the Behemoth melee, making a Diamond Lance, and making 1 somehow equal 3. Not only did the article mention that future changes need more time in the oven, but I think the fact that they enabled private match rewards implies that changes might be even slower than we expect. And I'm very happy about the rewards, by the way. I eventually want to host customs with my viewers and friends, since playing with my friends in the game is virtually impossible. It just doesn't work. Matchmaking can't find people who want to stay, and it's just an overall terrible, laggy experience. So now let's talk about these Hunter-specific changes. I don't think it fully accomplished its goal, and it had way too much collateral damage for playstyles that do enable your primary more. Let's expand on that thought. The clone changes kill radar manip alternative to Invis and Gemini, but accomplishes cutting down on the ability spam by making hunters choose between 2 out of the 3 of the frequent spam combo of Smoke, Clone, Swarm. In my opinion, what I think clone needs to be potent is a fast cooldown, needs to have the player nameplate, needs to be a radar ping, and then to a lesser extent, also needs to have some aim assist so that it's seen as a real player in the heat of the moment. While I would agree that other parts of the clone are similar power level to other obnoxious parts in the sandbox right now, I'd rather all that obnoxious stuff like Behemoth melee, etc. in the whole game also be toned down to let the gunplay shine a bit more. The barricade, proxy bomb, threadling are the parts of clone that could be reserved for, like, let's say an exotic armor or an extra aspect, etc. Or maybe just a separate version of clone entirely where you have to choose between bomb or radar ping. I don't want to go in circles talking about relative power level balance right now, but in short, radar manip and movement power spikes can enable more gunfights. Ability spam can replace them if too potent, frequent, easy, etc. Overall, I'm just not content with that change, even if this is a band-aid fix and they have something more significant coming out in the future. They could have just left it alone. And speaking of leaving it alone, Smokes and Swarms got astray from being unnecessarily buffed. Those were already 2 locked-in choices for me before they were even buffed in the first place. And so now, the worst part of all of it is that the ability spam route of throwing the Smoke and Swarm in the same place is virtually unchanged. Whereas the radar manip side of the Smoke and the zoning playstyle of the Swarm to counter Invis, that's severely wounded. I mean, Prismatic existing in general throws readability out the window anyway. I'd love to see them go the route of having multiple ability options to choose from in, say, the Smoke melee family, where you have one that's like a CS smoke grenade, another that's a poison, and another that's a radar ping. Or perhaps yet another aspect or exotic armor or something like that buffs the duration or something to Smoke so it can act as a radar ping. And on that same thought, what about Khepri's Sting and Balance of Power cooldown changes relative to the Smoke and the Clone? Like, what's going to happen to them? Unrelated, it was also in the patch notes, but Cryoclasm is functional now. But I would say that the previous version of Cryoclasm with the sprint requirement was way better. Which is, again, like, if it ain't broke, why are we messing with it? They didn't take options that were like the worst thing possible and turn them into the best. They turned something that was already average to above average, and for whatever reason, buffed it enough to make it the best, or in Cryoclasm's case, changed it crazily. I don't understand. Okay, enough talking in circles, let's move on to meta speculation. Right now, we are at Prism Hunter with Smoke, Swarm, Clone, and that's eventually going to shift to Behemoth, Shiver Strike, Diamond Lance, 1 equals 2, which can equal 3 with the right build. The meta could also shift to Solar Warlock floating with Igneous like it always has. For how long has Destiny 2 existed, that's just always been a staple. As for the Hunter-specific meta, perhaps it will stay exactly the same. Maybe the cooldown change doesn't matter because of the kit's overall potency. Second, Hunters are going to go back to Void Invis and Strain Grapple with the dive. And not much changes there except for the fact that Void is using the Slam Smoke more than throwing it across the map for a radar ping. The next is Bakris. The Bakris player would ditch the clone because they don't need the extra cooldown, and they would go for Smoke Refresh from Gamblers or Marksman for kill clip chaining. Another option is Renewal Grasp. They would probably ditch the Swarm because they have to, Renewal, but it would give them more of a toolbox for zoning depending on if they go the Crystal route from the arms, or if they use the exotic class item to get another bonus like Certarachnid for Woven Mail and playing really aggressively. And 5 is kind of a wild card that I don't expect to catch on because not everybody plays controller. Acrobat Dodge works so much better with controller, and if you're already taking a longer cooldown for clone, you might as well get Radiant too, which means you could use some guns like Adaptive Pulses to maybe compete with Elsie's. That's pretty much it, and in the background, it's going to shift to clips I got in a short play session, testing out a couple future meta options like Bakris. Watch that 2 taps. Very clean, and then look at how much I can miss and still maybe win a gunfight just because of the damage difference. Then it's shifting to Renewal Grasp. I'm going to get to talking here in a sec. Watch how the Renewal Grasp little crystal is cover for me, and I'm building up Frost Armor. He might have even forgot I was there. Okay, in the video, I didn't mention that Storm's Edge super... Actually, all 3 of the new supers are busted, and there's really not that much counterplay to them. I don't like their designs at all. Like, when I saw the preview, I was most excited for the Hunter super, because I thought it would be something that could enhance gunplay. I guess Song of Flame does enhance gunplay. It's a first-person super, and for that reason, I think I like it the most out of a lot of the supers in the game. But I like the Destiny 1 version, where it was just like, yeah, dude... You're point-blank melee one-hits now, but you essentially just have armor and get to use your gun and go crazy. And I guess you can do that, but the tracking bird grenade was a little bit too much in Destiny 2, etc. Let's get back to the Hunter super, though. It could have enhanced the gunplay by just simply letting you teleport to the ceiling of the map with your gun out instead of doing this ballerina twirl with the knife that also somehow has like verticality to it too. Even if you jump all the way above them, you're still going to die, and it's going to auto track, and it has 2 damage instances, one from where it started and then the end, and then sometimes if you're super unlucky with connection, it somehow kills you in between the travel path too. Like, I don't understand that thing. And then the axes, depending on what game mode you're playing, it can snowball a game into just third-person snail simulator. I don't know why everything in the game has to be third-person for equipment pickups. It'd be even fine if you didn't see it in the camera. It just would make the gameplay much more fun. But I guess with most of the people who play the game, that would ruin immersion, so we can't have that. But of course, what we can have is my Space Guardian landing from a height, and then the gun goes crazy, and then there's artificial ceilings in the PvP map, so I can't even use the aerial playstyle, where the airborne effectiveness is supposed to be doing me some good, the Dawnblade class, etc. Can't even do that, because I'm sorry, if I hit the ground too hard, I just can't see anymore. But I'm really glad we're immersed for the gameplay reasons. I'm sitting here with my 70-inch TV in the theater, reclined with my controller, listening to the gun sound effects, the rumble on my controller, that Bose sound system. No, I'm poor. I can't afford that. I hate that that's a common trend in gaming now, to choose like the immersion over gameplay feeling like a game that you want to play more of. It's kind of like, I've always wanted Destiny to be the local bar that I visit weekly versus going bar hopping on the weekend, and each bar has some problem with it, overpriced drinks, etc., cover charge. You're like, why are we doing all this? We could just go to the one bar close to home that we all like and would return to voluntarily. But no, for whatever reason, the live service model of the game is like going to a new place with a different problem each time, and I'm pretty sure these problems are artificial, by the way, because oh man, it would suck if the player had to make their own choice on what to use. Nope, just gonna make something arbitrarily the best for no reason, just to shake up the meta, when they could just choose what they're having fun with and use that. And it doesn't really matter for the majority of players, because with skill-based matchmaking, you really can just use whatever you want and it'll filter you out anyway, so that you win some, you lose some. Unless, of course, you are one of the best players in the game, then the meta choice absolutely makes a difference to your performance, and you will see your win rate go up if you use the more potent option. But then in the case of places like Trials, where there is an incentive to win, where you're essentially saving yourself 40 minutes by not failing at the gates, and you're also making sure that other teams don't unnecessarily have to play a better team, you're kind of holding them hostage there by just being good at the game. You're wasting their potential 40 minutes. So for Trials, yeah, I like to use the meta, and it sucks when the game faints out the most obvious meta possible, and I'm like looking at the artifact like, are you serious? These are non-decisions now. I went from having 5 classes or 5 builds that I like to play, and now it's just relegated to like 1 or 2 maximum, and that's super aggravating. Of course, right when I go flawless, it essentially turns into the casual playlist because it's one of the rare places where there isn't strict matchmaking and lobby balancing, so you kind of do get a mixed bag, which lets me have fun with wacky loadouts. Unfortunately, with the odd design of Trials, which I don't like, by the way, but once again, it's like one of the few places with that matchmaking protocol, at the expense of my teammates and my opponents sometimes, because it's either like I'm forcing my opponents not to go flawless, or I'm maybe forcing my teammates not to go flawless. So I try to stay in the practice pool as much as I can, but sometimes with a low population, it throws me out there and it matters to somebody, and I'm sorry about that, but I also got the game to have some fun, and it seems like the game is trying really hard to not have a place that is fun to play it, like regular control or whatever, because for whatever reason, people want to throw, swarm, smoke, clone. Like, they want to do that. That is what they enjoy. The changes wouldn't be this slow if the data wasn't showing that they like it. But there's also a valid point that maybe you're using the hardest meta possible because you want to feel more impactful in your matches. And that is valid, but because of skill-based matchmaking existing, I promise you, if you're not one of the best players in the game, it makes zero difference what you use anyway. You might as well just use what you're having fun with. But of course, players have to learn that the hard way after many years of playing the game. And also, they arbitrarily draw the line at some gentleman's agreement, but somehow find it okay to throw smoke swarms and clones 24/7 like they find it fun, but they won't grab a 6-stack. They'll leave, they'll back out if they catch any sort of good players too. Are they trying to play for an impact, or are they just making excuses? Where's the 6-stack? Where's the real meta? Where's the sword hill? Do you want to win bad at all, or is it just an excuse? Like, I don't get it. Which brings us back to, maybe they just like the relative power level of the game, and they truly enjoy Smoke Swarm Clone. But also, we can see the population of the game dwindling, so is that the correct choice? Because I know Destiny 2 Vanilla, I personally liked it the most, but the population was like landslide downward again, so that also wasn't the correct choice for the Destiny community. Maybe it's time to just start offering specific niche playlists for enthusiasts to enjoy them. And even if it's cutting the population into quarters, into halves, into fifths, into tenths, at least the people in that playlist will be enjoying it. And maybe I have to do that with private matches, but then I'm treated like a school principal where I have to deal with people infighting all the time from just trying to have fun in the first place. Whereas with matchmaking, you kind of just like shrug your shoulders and move on to the next. Whereas in the private matches, we have to solve our problems. I'm at least happy that when Destiny 2 Vanilla happened, that was my most played era of Destiny 2. I played like 18 hours a day, no joke. It was so much fun for me because it was an arena shooter with great gunplay, Halo style, with space magic, a little bit of Phantasy Star mixed in there. It was like peak Destiny 2 for me. And I know that's not the same for everyone else, but I stuck to my guns and I played it the most. I wanted a competitive experience. In the devs' words, it was the most competitive version of Destiny so far, and if the community latched onto it, it could have been incredible. But they didn't. They asked for other stuff that contributed to what we have now, the certain evolution timeline of the game, and look at the population now. People are still bouncing. Some of y'all, look at your social media posts, your comments, whatever. Y'all asked for it, some of y'all got exactly what you wanted, and some of y'all also left. I want to know why. Is it not fun? What's not fun? Let's like talk to the doctor. Let's get a prescription going here. Because I'm going to stay anyway. I just might have to move to private matches. Ultimately, that's not a really fair ask. No one's going to have the correct answers because Destiny is a game that not only changes on like a yearly cycle, like straight up, we're always back where we started. It always feels like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 5 steps forward, 4 steps to the left, Cupid shuffle, do your thing. All while that's happening, someone is getting onboarded to the game, and that version of Destiny in that moment is their version of Destiny. And it's majorly reflected in the way that they participate in discourse on the game, their wants, their needs, their desires to continue playing. It seems like Bungie's strat, whether intentional or not, was to let different pockets of the community, different player archetypes, almost be satisfied with the game at different points of the year for different types of players. And it's just been going on like that, and on like that, and on like that. And how I know that this is no different, even at the end of its 10-year cycle, final shape or whatever, is because every time in the past, when somebody makes a post on social media or comment or whatever, announcing their departure from the game, suddenly, a couple months from now, maybe half a year from then, that part of the game that is almost content with them gets announced and they go, we're back. And no one's forcing me to do the job. I still enjoy this game. Even for the most discontent I am at the game, there are still ups that outweigh the downs. And all that changes is the ratio of the day of how many downs before I have an up moment again. And that changes. But I'll tell you, even on the worst PvP days, the up of the day always outweighs all of the downs. Never changed in this game, and that's why I continue to play it, continue to make content on it, and have no problem continuing in the future. That being said, damn, it would be nice if there was a playlist with some double primary, focused on arena shooter gameplay, etc. That's another reason why I don't ever believe the quitter announcements, is because Destiny's never had competition. There's been so many scares in the past, like, the games were such major flops, I can't even think of a lot of them, but I swear that there were Anthem, Division, Outriders, Halo Infinite, Borderlands, like, I don't know. All I was getting at is, if it had some real competition in that last decade, maybe the game would have evolved into having our cake and letting us eat it too, or whatever the phrase is. Regardless, thank you all for listening to me rant. A lot of it was going off script entirely, and not that I had a script, I just had a couple light notes, but you know what I mean. Anyway, the team chatting game, I've seen some war messages, but I've also seen a lot of infighting going around, and with the population dwindling this much, I think we should all just be a little bit nicer to each other. Try to stem the bleeding. Like, why ruin their day and make them log off? You want them to log on. So even the people like shit-talking me, I'm like, oh yeah, you're better. What do I have to say to get you to queue again? Because I'll say it. It's like, oh yeah, you beat me in Control. Congratulations. I don't even say it sarcastically. It's like, I want to gas him up. I want him to think the small victory matters or whatever. Because I need him to queue again. So that I don't have to play against shit connections. And sometimes on a more positive note, they were running hard meta. But after like the 7th game in a row where they see me being a dumbass on Titan, they also get inspired by that. And you go, you know what? Maybe I don't want to throw the swarm grenade right now. Maybe I'll go have fun too. Okay, friends, that's about all I have in me. I'm gonna go play the game now.